Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Or welcome for the first time. Just welcome. Depending on what suits you best, right? Right. So, today we have something special planned. Today we're going to talk about the podcast. If you listen to podcasts, you probably know which one is the one. And that is also true for me personally, because it is my go-to podcast. It is what I put on when I don't have something special planned to listen to. If I'm cleaning my house or doing my chores, cooking dinner, anything, I very often have Joe Rogan on. And that's because it always feels like a safe bet. I know that either I'm gonna learn something new, or I'm gonna discover someone new, or I'm just gonna have a good time. And today we're gonna talk about the second option, the discovering someone option. Even though I probably could spend at least 1 hour talking about how much I have learned from Joe Rogan and his podcast, that is not what we're gonna do today. Today, we're going to talk about one of his latest guests, Joe. I hope I pronounced that right. Joe. I don't know how that's pronounced, okay? Anyways, I wanted to share this story with you because I found it so incredibly inspiring. And when I was telling this story to my mother yesterday, I started to cry a little bit. Not that I cried, but I had tears in my eyes. And that doesn't happen too often, that I tear up for others' stories. Because it feels like by now, you've heard all of them, You have heard of all of the struggles there are. You have heard of all kinds of pain. But it wasn't even the pain that was so touching in this. It wasn't the struggle. It was the realness, It's not often nowadays you meet something real, So let's watch this together. I really recommend you to watch this till the end. And when we're done watching, we will come back and give some more comments on it. Okay? Let's go.
And that goes back to you have an excuse all the time to do the wrong thing. You have an excuse all the time to go back to the familiar. You have an excuse all the time why to say the whole world is against you and be right. But so what? Now what? Now what are you going to do about it? How happy do you want to be? Your life will rise to the level you settle for. And just to keep pushing.
What did you do? How did you get out of it? What was the first job that you got?
When I was homeless?
Yeah.
I started, because I grew up singing. I was like, maybe I could get a gig somewhere and start singing, because I made money singing, for my whole life since I was little, $100, $200, but whatever. So I'd go around to coffee shops in the area, but San Diego started to be a hotbed for signing activity, grunge. There was kind of a grunge scene in San Diego. And so I'd go in there, and they charged you to sing there. I was like, this is not ideal. They wanted me to pay them $200. I was
really?
I was like, this is the
for
exact...
one gig?
Yeah.
And was the idea that you would sell tickets?
They thought it was like a signing. You would get signed.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean? Because it became so many record labels, I guess, were coming down at the time. I remember this one lady, my friend let me sit in on his gig. So I go sing with him. I'm starting to write my own songs. Oh, I forgot to tell you how I started writing songs back at school, but I'll tell you later.
I'll remember that.
So I started writing songs, singing my own stuff. I get on my friend's gig. He's packed the place out. I don't clearly, but he has it crowded. There's a door charge. So I go to settle out while he's taking his gear down. And this woman coffee shop owner was like, you guys don't get the door money. And I was like, what are you talking talking about? Like, he brought all these people in. She's like, no. She goes, you get the tip jar. And I was like, oh. I was like, you know what then? Why don't we get all your coffee and food money? You could just give us that instead. And she was like, you don't get the food beverage money, you get the tip jar. And I was so upset. I needed the money so badly. Like, I didn't have food. You know, like I was really wanting some money from that gig. And I remember I put my little finger in her face and I was like, I am cursing you.
Whoa.
You are, I know, it sounded so heavy. I was like, you are stealing from the people that are giving you a living. You're stealing from this guy. And I was like, you will go out of business. I was like, nobody can stay in business doing this to humans. I was so upset at her. And
Did he have a understanding with her, or was he
I
just
guess
getting
he
robbed?
didn't care. He just didn't care. I was so
Fucking hippies.
blown away. I was like, he was just wanted to be easygoing and didn't want to make her mad and wanted to get another gig there. And I was just so upset. And so I found this place. I liked this.
I curse you. Sorry for stopping it, but you get the same vibe as I get from her. She's like from a time before it all got ruined. Like, when did you last time hear someone say, I curse you? Like, it took me back like 20 years. It's like she's right there, you know?
When I was living in my car, there was a little tree that was a flowering tree, and I liked to park next to it, so like that was my home. And I noticed there was this coffee shop right there that was going out of business, and it was really off the beaten path. And so I went in there, and I talked to the lady who owned it. Her name was Nancy. And I was like, do you think you could stay open for 2 more months? And she's like, why? I'm like, if I bring people in, can I keep the door money? You can keep all the coffee and food. And like, we'll try and make it together. And Whoa. She said yes. And so I started going down on like the beach front in San Diego, and I'd sing, like street sing. And I'd tell people I'm singing at the Interchange Coffee Shop on Thursday night at 6 o'clock. And 2 people came. Like, it was 2 surfers that thought I was hot, I think. And I did a 5-hour show, because bar singing, you do 5-hour shows. And I just thought I had to do a 5-hour show. So I started writing a ton of material. Plus, I was using writing not to steal, and I was a prolific thief, so I had to become a prolific writer. And so I did this 5-hour show to these 2 guys. I'm bleeding my heart out because I was so lonely, and I realized I never tell the truth. Like, nobody knows the truth.
Now, I really want you to pay attention here, okay? Please, just pay attention here.
And so I did this 5-hour show to these 2 guys. I'm bleeding my heart out because I was so lonely, and I realized I never tell the truth. Like, nobody knows the truth. I'm scared to death. I'm not a great person. I'm stealing. And I'm lonely. And I was like, maybe if I tell the truth, I won't feel so lonely. So I made a promise that I would write really honest songs. So these poor 2 surfers were subjected to 5 hours of like bleeding out my vocal cords. It was amazing. I made $10. And the next night, then I would go sing all throughout town, street corner. I'd say, hey, Thursday night. They knew where to see me. And it just grew. It went from 2 people to 4 people to 8 people to 40 to 80 to capacity to people standing outside watching me sing through the window. And I got discovered.
Wow.
Yeah. It was nuts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great story.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Wow. What was that like? What was the feeling like when it was at capacity and you recognized that these people were, that something was changing in your life? These people were coming out to see you perform.
The coolest thing, and why I'm smiling, is because I was changing. It moves me to tears right now. Even before the people came, I felt the momentum shifting. You know, I just felt I was getting better. I was getting healthier. I was getting happier. My panic attacks, like, I found out how not to have them. Like, it just made me feel good. And then when these people came, I just bore my soul, and I just didn't pull a punch. And they liked me. And I know that sounds superficial, but it wasn't, because it was so authentically me. I wasn't pretending to be better or more talented. It was so raw. And people would cry, and I would cry. And it was just such a real connection. Like, for the first time in my life, I had a real, meaningful human connection, and it wasn't scary. It felt good. And they would give me books to read, and they would give me food. And I didn't think it would lead to a record deal. It just felt like being fed for the first time in your life, you know, and not hiding and not being fake and just being really authentic. So it felt really good. And then when more people came, it just took on a momentum that was like, holy shit.
How much time is passed from the two people to people standing outside?
You know, I don't know, but 6 months maybe. Ish, something like that.
That's a lot of change in 6 months.
Yeah, maybe a little more, 8 months, but couldn't have been more than that because I don't think I was homeless more than a year.
What was that change? Had to feel crazy.
It was wild. It was cool. And you know, from like being on stage, but like I wouldn't make a set list and I would just feel the audience, and like I talked and I tell a lot of stories, and like kind of like stand up. I would just tell like just stories and jokes and just shoot shit with people in the audience, and they were just these really live, electric, like kind of wild shows, and make them dead quiet. And I would just take little breaks so people could use the bathroom, and when people started standing outside and they couldn't hear but they were just watching me through the window, and the look on their face, like to this day it like gives me chills. Like they looked at me with like a certain look, and it was like, holy shit, like this is different. And they would stand out in the rain. Like we put little speakers out there so they could hear. And people would stand in the rain and just listen to me singing through the window with little speakers. And it was just like, it was very humbling. Like very, very humbling.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then what happens? How do you get discovered?
There was a radio DJ, a programmer, excuse me. He ran 91X, which is a really big radio station in the country. They might have been number 2 in the country at the time. Heavy alternative station. Somebody told him about this girl singing in a coffee shop and that he should come. And he came in. I could recognize new faces when they come in because this wasn't a big place, by the way. I mean, this might have been 70 people that could fit inside. That's a tiny coffee shop.
So you had developed a crowd. Like
Yeah.
You were accustomed to seeing familiar faces.
Yeah, it was a loyal, diehard fan base. Like, tiny, don't get me wrong. But I knew them, you know what I mean? It was like a little family in a way. And so this guy came in, he had a goatee, flannel shirt on, and he looked kind of hard, and he was sitting in the back. And I remember singing the song 1,000 Miles Away, and he was just weeping, like quietly, but just tears were streaming down his face. And he came up to me afterwards. He's like, hey, I'm at the radio station, and like, why don't you come in, like sing a song one night or something? And I was like, okay. So I go in there, still living in, I got another car, so I had a car to live in. I'd saved up enough door money to buy a car, cheap car, like a couple $100 car. So I get down to the radio station and I sing a song for him and we talk a little bit. And I guess he went ahead, him and this guy named Lou Niles, put it on the radio, and it got requested by fans. That's back when you could still request songs and they'd listen to it. And it got somehow into the top 20, of this station, which is a big deal. Like, top 20 on that station was like, labels pay a lot of money to promote their artists to try and get them into the top 20. And this was like an acoustic guitar demo in the middle of like all this grunge music. And so record labels were like, what is this song that's showing up on this playlist? And they would call him and he's like, it's this chick down at this coffee shop. And so all of a sudden there would be like these limousines pulling up. And they would give sweet little Nancy, it was just, she was having a banging business now, which felt so good. And they would be like, she'd be like, Jewel, Sony Records is here tonight. And I'd be like, all right. I was so passé about the whole thing. It was very funny. And then they'd take me out to tacos and talk to me about record deals. And then there was a bidding war. It was every label came down, every label. They'd flown from New York. They'd bring in bigger executives. Then they'd fly in. They'd come again. They'd, all these limousines showing up. And I would start to get flown around to talk to different record labels. And I
How
thought
long does this process take?
I don't know. I'm kind of bad with time that way. I don't know, a couple months. Something like that.
And you don't have a manager. You don't have anybody speaking for you.
Mm-mm. No, but I went to the library and I found this book called
How to Manage Yourself for Dummies.
It was Don Passenheim, I think, called Everything You Need to Know About the Music Business.
Oh, boy.
She's so charming. She is so damn charming. Beautiful, gentle, like... If I was Joe, I would have catch some feelings for her, I think. If I was a man sitting in front of her, I would catch some feelings. She's just so... Either you see it or you don't. I can't put it in your head.
And that sounded good, so I read it, and I just learned about mechanicals and royalties and back-ends and advances.
Oh, so you did your homework.
I did my homework, and there ended up being a huge bidding war over me. All the labels just started, like, competing. By this time, I kind of found, like, a de facto manager. I maybe got a lawyer here at some point, and this might now have taken more time. But I realized, because of reading that book, that an advance is a loan. You don't get to keep the money. You pay it back through record sales. And so I did the math to see how many records I'd have to sell to pay back $1 million, and it was a lot of records. And so it was like having a bounty on my head as an artist. I almost didn't sign my record deal because I had just figured out how to be happy. Like, genuinely. I was really starting to figure it out, and I knew it, like, inside myself. I was doing so much better. And God forbid you take somebody with my emotional background and they ever get famous. I'm the recipe for every movie you've seen about every musician. Like,
right.
And again, I didn't want to be a statistic, and I fought so hard for my happiness up to this point that I was like, I don't think I could trust myself to have a record deal and figure out how to do that career without self-imploding. So I almost didn't sign it. I remember being on the beach one day, and I was like, I wanted to do it, but I was terrified of doing it. So I made myself a promise that my number one job would still be to figure out how to be happy, and my number two job would be to be a musician. And then under the musician category, that I wanted to be an artist more than I wanted to be famous. And so knowing those was like having my North Star, and I felt like I could navigate and make decisions based on those things. And so I went ahead and signed the record deal. I turned down the advance. I turned down $1 million bonus.
Holy shit.
As a homeless kid.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That is so crazy.
Can you imagine doing that? Like, as a homeless, it's hard to say no to $100, I would guess. Can you imagine? But you know what I think it was? Well, it's like she says herself. She had already found something that made her happy. And but then to have the ability, to have the ability and the judgment, to be able to make that judgment, that to know what it is that actually brings you happiness right now and how important that is. It is kind of hard to keep that focus in life. Haven't you noticed very often when things are going well, life often tries you out and gives you two roads. The one is the one that you were planning to go, and here is another one that offers you some benefit, that offers you something you didn't even expect. But it would mean that you would have to turn off the destination, the road you had already chosen. So it's like a temptation, like the apple. And do you see how much context it gets, how much more value her experience and her story has once you know that it wasn't for sale. It's just like when Dave Chappelle left $50 million and went. It's the same thing, right? For a homeless, $1 million, it's the same thing as $50 million. It doesn't matter. It's about having something. It's about having a value. It is about having something that is above that money, that is so much more important, that even without that money, you're good, you're fine. That is one of the things I think people could take from this. In fact, I think it might be the thing that defines you, Of all the things you have, of all the things you have accomplished, of all the things you are capable of. I think the only thing that actually defines you is what is not for sale. You know? Your loyalty doesn't mean shit to me if it's for sale. It's all about who's gonna pay the right price. Your friendship doesn't mean shit to me if it's for sale, you know? Nothing about you really means anything as long as it has a price tag. Of course, I understand that in this situation it was also a smart move not to take that deal. But to be able to, as a homeless person, think beyond $1 million, to be able to think beyond that and just pull yourself back and be like, you know? Let's continue. It's just a little left.
And I took the
How
biggest...
did you do that? I would have taken that money for sure, 100%. I'd have been like, I'll figure it out in the future. Taking this money.
Me too,
I'll get
probably.
a fat apartment overlooking the water.
This is not what I did.
As a homeless kid, you passed on $1 million.
I did.
Wow.
But I took the biggest back end anybody had ever been awarded. And so if I sold records, I was going to make a shit ton. So because, like, under the artist category, I wanted to be an artist more than I wanted to be famous. It meant I had to put myself in an environment and in a position to win as a singer-songwriter and as a folk singer, no less, at the height of grunge. The odds of that working, I knew, were really slim, and I felt like the bidding war over me was just much more of like a dick contest between all the labels. I didn't think it necessarily had to do with my talent. I thought I was talented, but I thought the odds were still really, really against me. And I had to put myself in a position to be able to weather the fact that my first album may not be successful. But if you have $1 million signing bonus, you have to have your first record be successful or else you'll get dropped because you cost so much to the label. And so I was just doing it to put myself in a position to make my art first and to not leverage my art unduly. You know, it's like saying you have to grow a pear, but you don't even have a tree yet. Like, I had to grow a tree. Like, the pear was a long way away. And so I just tried to look at it kind of agriculturally or in a natural system of, like, I have to plant a seed. I have to, like, grow a tree, you know.
Watch the entire episode for free.
Just like Joe said in the end. It is amazing to be able to think so clearly, you know? I really felt inspired from this talk, as I often do from Joe Rogan's podcast. And the genuine reaction of Joe when he listens, when he takes it in, when he feels it, he kind of helps you to get it too. But in this situation, I wouldn't need his help, but because I understand very well some of the feelings she was portraying. And I could imagine what it must have felt like when she stood there on the stage and when the people were looking in through the windows. It's funny, I don't cry when I listen to it, but if I try to retell what she just said, it brings tears to my eyes. But you know, I think what brings tears to your eyes, it's not the compassion for their struggle. It's because it wakes up something inside you that I won't cry on camera. I won't do it. It wakes up something inside you that you just haven't found the words for, you know? I am a sensitive person sometimes, but it's not often that I actually tear up because of something like this. there are so many things to the story, you know? There are so many aspects of it. But what moved me the most was actually the audience, you know? The audience. The way they saw her and the way she saw them. That moved me very much. And you know what, guys? I have never heard Jewel sing. Or at least I don't think I've heard any of her music. Maybe I've heard something like on the radio somewhere, but it's nothing that I know of. So, let's make that the first music reaction on this channel. So tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow, I will do a reaction to Jewel, one of her most popular songs, I would guess. But I am scared, I am terrified, and this is a new feeling. I don't think I have ever been afraid to listen to someone because I wanted so badly for them to be good. Well, she's obviously good since so many people like her, but I mean, I hope I'm gonna like her music because I like her so much. Well, guys, that was it for today. I hope this was worth your time, and I hope this made you feel something the way it made me feel something. And guys, what would you have done in her situation? I mean, if you were homeless. Well, you can tell me what you would have done if you were homeless too. What would be the first job you would look for? What are your skills? And would you have taken that million? Just be honest to yourself. Would you have been able to be cold and just take one step back and think about all the pros and cons? Or would you have just run for the million and thought everything will solve itself? Because I think I might be the second one. Most probably I would take the million. Most probably. If I was in that situation. I think so. I'm unfortunately not proactive enough. I'm more of a reactive person. If I had no money and the million would occur, I think I would be stupid enough to go for it, unfortunately. And since I want to make a reaction to her music, if you have heard something, you can give me a tip on which one to react to, which of her songs to react to. I would appreciate that. So that is it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. You are amazing. You are the best. Bye. Do you see that she has short nails on one hand and long nails on the other hand?